I think as you're on your way to Dade County, and it's a couple of hours from Atlanta, you gradually start seeing little signs of destruction. You see trees felled on the side of the highway. There was a tree that had fallen down in the middle of the road about 20 miles south of Dade County from where we were. So you see these little signs of destruction. And then there's always one moment where it just opens up and you see everything. And it is horrifying.
When we got there, we got to Dade County, we got to Trenton, it was almost 1 o'clock in the morning, so it was pitch black. All the power had been knocked out. You couldn't see anything. So my photographer, Dan Riley, and I, we were driving, and for a while you can kind of see branches down, you see trees, you kind of see, you know, some signs of light damage. We took a turn, and I remember the first thing I saw over to my right were just wheels and what looked like a truck bed up tangled in power wires. And it was almost surreal because it was so dark, you had to wait a minute for your eyes to focus and adjust to the light. And then once we realized what we saw, it was like, oh my gosh. That's when you really kind of could tell, you know, the magnitude.
You never really know what to expect, and photographer JoJo Johnson and I, as we were driving up I-75, it's very dark, and we would come up on tractor trailers that were blown over to the side of the road. There were no skid marks on I-75. They had not tried to stop. Literally, they were blown over. So it was kind of our first sign that this was really something big. And we got off at that exit, 328 here in Ringgold, and there was a roadblock, and the officer ushered us through to the media checkpoint, which was down the road on Alabama Road. And as soon as we turned on that road, both JoJo and I said, oh my God, even though it was dark, because of the lights from the interstate and some floodlights that they had set up, you could just see that everything had been completely flattened.
We got to Dade County, and you could see from the highway, the highway parallels the main drag in Dade County. And we're approaching on the highway, and through the trees you can just see buildings with roofs torn off. You can see trees that used to be 20 feet tall and now are just stumps about 3 feet tall.
It just looked like a war zone. I had never seen anything like it. And the darkness added a particular, you know, sense of eeriness to it too. The only thing that kind of lit up the way were police lights and then people with flashlights going back and going through their houses and just trying to find things.
There's always that first moment where you realize, wow, this happened and it's pretty terrible.
When the sun rose, we saw all of these people walking. Nothing worked. They couldn't get information, so they just left their house and they started walking towards town. They were stopped at those checkpoints, and that's where they were exchanging information. And about that time, I got a call from our executive producer, Ben, who had 2 pieces of video that he wanted me to see, and that was the tornado and also video from our sky cam. Because it is so difficult to get into some of these closed down areas, it was really our first look at the town. And he said to me, Julie, this town is in trouble. And I was sitting there with all of these people waiting for news, and they said, well, what did you see? And it's so difficult to find the words to say what it is that you see. I think the pictures have to speak for themselves because they are devastating.
There's no piece of video, there's no story, there's no interview that any of us can do that can really grasp the magnitude of what happened there. It just isn't. It's so big, it's so far spread that it's impossible to really kind of bring home the devastation.
In any situation of tragedy, I think, when it's that obvious and it's that brutal, the first instinct, even though you're a reporter, the first instinct is to sympathize and to feel for these people in these awful situations.
I talked with a high schooler there. He was going out, he was trying to help people after the storm blew through. He went to his uncle's trailer and he found his uncle basically dead inside of his trailer that had been blown off of its foundation, and he found him dead inside. And I just asked him, I said, you know, what's going through your mind right now? He said, this is the worst day in the history of Dade County.
These stories grip us for a good week or so and then they fall off the radar. The untold story is going to be when all these folks have to repair their lives.